Hey, it's Mandee Montana. If you're looking for the perfect Mother's Day gift, something truly special, I have the best idea. A facial at Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler. I've had the chance to experience their facials myself, and let me tell you, it's pure relaxation. Their team is so professional, they really customize the experience to fit exactly what your skin needs. Whether you're shopping for your mom, your wife, your sister, or someone who's like a mom to you, a little self care goes a long way. A facial is something she'll enjoy and remember. Gift cards are available, and Hand and Stone makes it easy to treat her to the gift of relaxation. Stop by the spa today in the Cumberland Shopping Center or online at handandstonetyler.com. Welcome to the Celebrating Women podcast, hosted by Mandee Montana, a podcast that celebrates women, their stories, their struggles, and ability to overcome. Conversations that celebrate their gifts, their talents, and courage. It's the Celebrating Women podcast, presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. With over 20 massage therapists and 6 estheticians certified and trained in multiple protocols, you can get an affordable massage or facial located right here in the East Texas area. Book your appointment today. Stop by the spa in the Cumberland Shopping Center in Tyler or online at handandstonetyler.com. Welcome back to the Celebrating Women podcast. I'm Mandee Montana with my guest today, Nora. She's returned.
Hello.
So last time you were here, we talked about empathy,
Yes.
and we talked about some of the work that you do in the community. But recently I saw you make a Facebook post about creativity.
Yes.
And I loved it so much that I immediately messaged you and I was like, will you please come in and talk with me about this? Because I think creativity is something that as adults, we tend to put to the side, don't focus on. And I'm guilty of that myself, which I think is why it resonated so much with me, because I am a creative person, but I don't always make time for it. And I know that you are too. I know that you're a very creative person and that you studied art, correct? So will you kind of just tell me what prompted you to post it and maybe kind of tell me a little bit about the post?
I think like most of us, I'm on this continuous journey. How am I going to learn and grow, and where do I want to see myself today, tomorrow, and then 5 years down the line? How do I take care of myself? And so that's what spurred this on, is I've been listening to a lot of talks or books or reading of books and trying to daily practice having my eyes open to some of the moments in our lives that maybe we aren't paying attention to, that then start to build up, and then we don't feel that great in life. We don't feel great about ourselves. And I love Brene Brown.
I do too. I'm a fan.
Yes. And she was talking about creativity. And I was also listening to a book by this man named Simon Sinek.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with his work.
He's wonderful.
Yes, he is.
And he was talking about how we have to have self-empathy as well. So these books just started laying on, I think I would call it pressure for me to pay attention to, am I being self-empathetic? And being an artist and trying to live life creatively, it just really hit, oh my gosh, this is the thing that I'm not doing for myself. And I think maybe other people need to hear it as well. So I started making a couple of Facebook posts, you know, these encouraging things like, hey, maybe pay attention to this today. And the creativity one, it's just so close to my heart. I've always thought of myself as an artist ever since I was itty bitty. My father was an artist, and he didn't feel so. Earlier, you guys aren't privy to this, but we were talking about archetypes for men and women, and my father felt that pressure that he needed to be a provider for his family. So he didn't see the avenue of being an artist as making enough money or being stable enough to provide for all of us. So he went his other avenue, which was psychology. And so I always aligned with my dad as, oh yes, art. And he always encouraged it, you know, just keep drawing. And like you mentioned, when I was a kid, that was easy. And I had encouragement, like my father and teachers and things like that. But then when we switch and we become adults, we don't have that available encouragement, you know? It's people want us to worry about the job, worry about your day to day. How are we present in our community? And, you know, I think we get so enveloped by the day to day, you know, that we become kind of these factory workers of making our life. And we aren't opening up our minds and our hearts to a full life. Something that I think, you know, when it comes our time for passing, that we will regret fully.
So. I love all the things that you just said, and I so relate to them. I have, over the years, had many people that were kind of mentors or speaking life into me give me the same advice that you just did. Like, you're going to look back one day, and those 60-hour work weeks that you pulled might not be the thing that's most rewarding in your life. Yes, you need to pay the bills, right? We all need to live. Currency is important.
Yes.
It's true. But there comes a point where you've got to find a balance, right? Where you are taking care of yourself and feeding your soul. And that looks differently for different people. I totally get that. But coming from someone who is an artist and who has practiced mostly visual art, how do you make time for that now? So now that you've kind of had this moment of pressure, what have you done since where you're like, okay, I'm going to make time for this?
So I think it's like anything else in life. We need to schedule it out. You know, I think that's the first really good step, is to say, no, I'm going to dedicate this amount of time on this day or these days, and I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to have distraction. I'm just going to sit down and do it. And then it becomes a habit, and it becomes a part of that day-to-day life. You know, go to the grocery store, go into the studio, pay the bill, go into the studio. And then your hands will really connect with your mind and your heart. And then it just becomes this need. It's not a to-do list. It's I need to get in there and finish this. I know for me personally, a lot of the work that I do is about our social world. Sometimes injustices I see. Sometimes it's just me trying to work out how I'm taking in the world. And so I think that connection of hands to head and our experiences is just so valuable.
It
so
is.
It stops being just a habit, and it really does take over your life. And then you change how you see the world, you know?
You know, when I was in school, so I think this is relevant. When I was in high school, I was a really good student. So I did all the academic enriched classes. What that held me back in, though, was an opportunity to take classes like art that I had never taken. Really. I took like a 6th grade, 6-week cycle class, you know, that everybody took. But then as I got into high school, because I was already in band and I was doing yearbook, my art credits were fulfilled in that way. So I didn't need to take an actual art class. And I regretted it so much that in college, I went ahead and took art appreciation.
Good.
And I fell in love with it, Nora. I had never seen light in the way that I see it now. And I had kind of been playing with photography a little bit, but then I dove into photography classes too. And I really started to see the world so differently. I saw colors differently. I saw shadows and light differently. And it gave me such a feeling that I don't even know how to express totally. I still do. I often get overwhelmed by just seeing light patterns, like the light that's shining on you right now. There's light patterns on the wall. I would have never noticed that before.
Hey friends, it's Mandee. Have you ever wished for a protein drink that's light, refreshing, and crystal clear? Well, the wait is over. Zingular's Clear Protein Plus is finally here. With 20 grams of grass-fed whey protein isolate, 0 artificial sweeteners, and powerful digestive enzymes, this isn't your typical protein shake. It's clean, smooth, and easy on your stomach. Plus the flavors, blue raspberry and frosted lemonade. So good you won't even believe it's protein. I love how refreshing and hydrating it is, especially after a workout or a busy day. No fillers, no bloat, just clean, high-quality protein. Want to be one of the first to try it? Order now by clicking the link in show notes. Zing with Mandee. Subscribe and save to snag 10% off on this and all future subscription orders. Plus, use my code ZINGWITHMANDEE all one word, to save $10 off your first order. It's all in the show notes. That's Zing with Mandee, XYNGWITHMANDEE. Zing with Mandee to save $10 off your first order. Click the link in show notes. Don't miss out on hitting those daily protein goals. The future of protein is clear.
Had I not taken an art class, and it's so beautiful and it's so simple, but it's just this like little sliver of life that I was missing out on because I hadn't exposed myself to it. Now when I travel, the first thing I do is find the best art museum in town, and I go and I like schedule time to go see it because I have such an appreciation for it. I don't necessarily think that I'm a very gifted visual artist, but I have a deep appreciation for it. And I think that the two go hand in hand. Like even just experiencing it and trying to work out what somebody else was maybe working out by viewing their work, I feel like is valuable too.
Well, and that's the biggest thing. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So, firstly, there's so many studies that have been done over decades and decades that prove that as humans, we need some kind of creative outlet. We need art. Even if we're not creating it, we need to take it in because it helps our brains take in everything else in life.
Yeah.
So we start to notice all of these things. And it's so ingrained in us that it's been our number one communicator across all of time.
I took classes after taking art appreciation and went, whoa, this is how we experience life with each other.
Yes, this is how we've communicated and connected with each other. Forever, we're still connecting and able to understand people from the Egyptians even further, because of art. It's not something that only certain people have, that connection with art. It's the same with music. It's the same with so many different avenues of creativity. And that's why I think it's important to mention to people that this is not an encouragement for you to go and quit your day job and pick up a paintbrush. There's so many different ways that you can open your eyes to the world. You can see the light in a different way. It's opening up your brain for the experience. You're taking off the blinders. And it's so important. I mean, I am going to say everyone should go to art museums and spend the time. Don't go to the Louvre and take your picture by the Mona Lisa and then run away.
It's the most underwhelming experience you can imagine, by the way.
Yes.
It truly is. She's tiny.
She's tiny. She's behind glass. And you're going to wait for 2 hours to have 5 seconds.
And I'm guilty of not going actually to the Dallas-Fort Worth museums. I know they're amazing, like the Kimball in Fort Worth. And then the Dallas Museum of Fine Art. I have been to the Houston Museum of Fine Art.
That one's so good.
It's so good. And then the Menil collection is down there too, which I really love surrealist art. And so it's so weird. And I don't know why I like weird work, but I do. I like fantasy and strange imaginings. And so much of that is expressed in that type of artwork. And that collection is really small. But I could probably easily spend 2 hours in there because sometimes you just stand in front of something and let it wash over you.
And I think a big thing to note, too, is that our Tyler Museum of Art doesn't have all of the same kind of big exhibitions, but they do have some good, valuable stuff. And
They really do.
And Tyler really does house a lot of creative people. Go and find some people that are dedicating their time and just talk with them.
Yes.
Because I think that starts to give you the same kind of benefit. Creativity isn't always just the action. It is that step outside of the same things we say every day, the same kind of conversations, mind frame. It's important that even just the conversation happens.
No, I agree. And I think creativity can happen in conversation, right? I mean, because we come up with new ideas when we're in conversation with people, and that is a creative expression as well, whether you take action on it or not. This, for me, is a creative outlet. The podcast is. And it's given me so much joy. I've been blessed to have the skill set to edit audio, to understand how the technical pieces all work in a way that allows me then to be creative. Where with visual art, I don't necessarily have the skills. So it's more like play for me.
Yeah.
Which is also awesome.
And super important.
But I have found one of the things that I enjoy doing, and I don't know if this is helpful for anyone listening, but sometimes, even though I don't think that I'm very good at it, I'll either turn on a podcast or an audiobook or music, and I'll just draw and play. And sometimes I write things, or I'll write down like words that maybe came from the book, or something that had inspired a thought that I had from the novel, or just drawing the characters or the scene or something. And I get so much joy out of it. Instead of playing a mindless game on my phone, it's just the act of doing it.
Yes.
Or coloring.
I think more people need to get out there with some chalk. You know, draw on the sidewalk. Do something, you know. Be a little silly. Relive that child that felt that freedom and that vulnerability to just express themselves in whatever way came. You know, some kids loved putting on talent shows at their house, you know. Some kids wanted to help cook. You know, there's so many different ways that for each individual, they can express themselves and have that creative moment. I do have to mention as well that my position at Stanley's is community outreach coordinator. I have found people that are super creative in a sense that I hadn't ever really thought of before.
Okay.
That they are really working their brains to figure out solutions for problems.
Yes.
And they find the similar benefits, you know? And I could see in them, you know, when I'm not in the studio for a while, I start to feel kind of sickly almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because my mental health, I think, is taking a little bit of a hit, you know? And so I see some of that sickliness in these people that they're like, there's a problem and I need to solve it and I can't solve it. And so I'm just trying to give as many examples as I can of
I love that. Yeah.
creativity, because I think people do have a set idea of what creativity is.
Yes.
And that builds boundaries for them, and those boundaries turn into walls, and they say, well, no, I'm trapped here where I am. I'm not good at drawing. I can't paint. I can't play an instrument. That's just a lost cause. But that's not the truth.
Right. I'm so glad that you're talking about that, because I know I keep coming back to visual art because it's how I know you, right? What you just said is so important, because truly there are millions of ways to be creative. It's infinite. It's infinite, because creativity is, you know, as simple as a thought, as a creative thought. It could be writing. It could be singing, you know, even if you don't think you're very good at it, you know, which I'm not. People think, oh, she's been on the radio, she's a singer. I'm not. For the record, please don't ask me to do karaoke. You will regret it. It's not a pleasant experience. Although I have thought it's at times, like, what a fun challenge for me to maybe go take voice lessons, because I do enjoy working with my voice, but I don't have those skills. And I think that that's maybe another boundary to creativity sometimes, is you feel like you have a lack of skills.
Yes. But I think that that's tied into a big issue that we all battle every day. It's multifaceted. It's the vulnerability. We don't want to be vulnerable. It's a sticky, hard place to be. It's really tough. And I think that sometimes we forget that our vulnerability is something we need to practice, because then what happens is people start to see you practice vulnerability. They become vulnerable with you. That starts to spread. And then one of the big triggers for going, oh, no, I can't tell people how I feel or show myself is, what are they going to think? Well, eventually no one cares because they're in the same spot with you.
Right.
But vulnerability, I think, is a big issue. And then I think it is just insecurity. I think we've mentioned a couple of times the difference between being a kid and then being an adult. I think we've sort of forgotten. I started thinking, ooh.
Yeah.
But I think we have set up what we should be as an adult. And who cares? It's just creating insecurity for you.
Right.
You know? Who was the one that said who we're supposed to be? Because I don't think anyone ever did make a fact of, you've got to be this, you've got to do that. And so we have all of these comparisons that we do with each other. And comparison is the killer of, this is a Brene Brown quote, it is the killer of self-compassion.
Oh, I love that. Comparison is the killer of self-compassion.
Because if we're not going to be compassionate to ourselves, then that means that we're also judging others.
Oh, gosh,
without
yes,
realizing
right?
it.
Yeah.
Because if you judge yourself for any quote-unquote weakness, then how can you give compassion to others when they have a weakness?
Right.
So I think insecurity is very healthy. It's going to happen to us all, but it's only healthy if we recognize it. If we name it and then we go, okay.
Right, because growth happens in vulnerability.
Yeah.
And if you're not allowing for growth, then you're probably regressing or dying.
Yeah.
If you're not growing, you're dying, right? And so I feel like creativity and vulnerability and allowing for that space allows for growth in all areas of your life.
Yeah.
It's interesting sometimes what happens on the podcast here when I'm in conversation with someone like you is I'll be inspired in another part of my life. For example, when you were talking about making it a habit to be in the studio and scheduling time, that is so applicable to everything we do in life, whether it's taking care of our bodies with nutrition or fitness. I think going to work is sort of rote. I think that routine for most of us is sort of there. We're going to get up, we're going to get out of bed, we're going to get ourselves ready, and we're going to go do the thing that we get paid to do so that we can pay the bills. But the other areas of life that are fulfilling and taking care of relationships, like that's a big one.
Huge.
You know, and it's something that I haven't been very good at most of my life. I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday. She and I are both like hardcore worker bees. We love work. A lot of times our work has been creative, so we're fulfilled in that way. But we have a tendency to sometimes neglect the people that we love in our lives, take them for granted, just assume they're going to always be there.
Yes.
And throw ourselves into the other things when, you know, we're talking about creativity, but I think that that's a piece of it too.
It is. Yes.
Relationships and the human condition or viewing the social world, whatever that is. Without that piece, what are you expressing?
Yes. And I think that that's another boundary that we've set up for ourselves, in that it is hard to fully feel emotions.
Yeah.
And that includes happiness. I think we're so scared that things will be taken away that we, you know, we don't fully delve into them because we're scared of the inevitable pain of loss. But I was just listening to a book by a woman named Pema Chodron, and it was called How We Live Our Lives is How We Will Die. And it's all about that we have this inevitable that's going to happen. We all will die. But how we live our lives and how we take things in makes that not as scary because we are getting fulfillment, is kind of her very generalized. The book goes way into more.
Yes.
But that's the generalized idea, is to have fulfillment. You need to spend time with others. You need to show them that love because that's a gift back into you. You know, I think to bring this back into creativity, you know, these are all just little markers of those moments in life.
Yeah.
It really is.
I love that you brought up the word fulfillment. I think that there is a tendency to chase happiness, but what we really are longing for is fulfillment. And that's what she was speaking about. Her name is Tara Renzi, if you want to look her up. She's got a book on the concept too. But I think it's really easy to, especially because happiness is kind of one of those simple, easy emotions to name, right? Most of us know how to name happy, sad, mad, right? But when you go beyond it, there's so much more depth and breadth of emotion to experience. And some people struggle naming them. But fulfillment oftentimes, I think, comes from things that are really wonderful, but it can also come from things that are really challenging and those moments of vulnerability. I think about different areas of my life where I've had to push myself really hard or overcome something that was really, really difficult. And I learned a lot from it. And so being able to have that learning perspective from those challenges has allowed me to feel that fulfillment.
Yes.
but not necessarily happiness.
Yeah.
And I think creativity can be like that too. Like it can allow you to deal with those sticky, difficult emotions, frustration, anger, loss, grief, and offer that fulfillment.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that we are aiming for that fulfillment, and we aren't necessarily able to name it, let alone in the word or how we're trying to get there.
Right.
And I think that does become an issue for us. If we were to delve this down into the elevator speak, you only have that amount of time to say what you need to say. I would say that I don't believe that you will be your healthiest, happiest, most fulfilled person if you are living as a robot in life, just getting through each day. And perhaps the reason why you're just trying to get through each day is something that you need to pay attention to. And maybe that hurt, maybe that sorrow, whatever it is, will be aided by the creativity. And then your life will start to get some more of that blossom and bloom happening.
I think that's the best possible way to wrap it up. Nora, thank you so much for your time. I treasure our conversations, whether they're on the mic or not. I just value you so much as a human. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
The Celebrating Women podcast wants to hear from you. Email us a voice message to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story or the story of an incredible woman you know. Become part of the conversation on social media. Facebook.com/Celebrating Women Podcast. On Instagram, search Celebrating Women Podcast. The Celebrating Women Podcast has been presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Book your appointment today. Stop by the spa in Cumberland Shopping Center or online at handandstonetyler.com. Support the show for as little as $3 per month at celebratingwomenpodcast.buzzsprout.com or visit our show notes. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Celebrating Women podcast.